Park Tae was 26 years old when the sky turned dark over Seoul. He remembered standing on the roof of his apartment building, looking up at shapes that blocked the sun. They were not clouds. They were ships. Hundreds of them. Each one bigger than anything humans had ever built. That was the day everything changed for humanity. The aliens called themselves the Vrel. They came from a place far beyond the stars that humans could see with their eyes. They were tall, thin creatures with gray skin and 4 arms. Their eyes were black and showed no warmth. When they spoke, their voices sounded like metal scraping against stone. The Vrel did not come to say hello. They did not come to learn about human culture or share their knowledge. They came because they wanted Earth. They wanted its water, its minerals, and its location in the galaxy. Humans were just an inconvenience. Within 3 days, every government on Earth surrendered. There was no choice. The Vrel had weapons that could destroy entire cities with a single shot. They showed this power by erasing a small island in the Pacific Ocean. 1 million people lived there. Then 0 people lived there. The message was clear. Park Tae joined the Earth Defense Force that same year. It was a joke of an organization. The Vrel allowed humans to have a small military, but only for show. Human ships were slow and weak. Human weapons could not even scratch the paint on a Vrel fighter. But Tae joined anyway. He needed to do something. He needed to feel like he was not completely helpless. The Galactic Concord arrived 1 year later. They were a council of 12 alien races who claimed to rule the galaxy with wisdom and fairness. The Vrel were members of this council. So were the Keth, a race of reptile-like beings who saw other species as nothing more than tools. The Concord looked at humanity and made a decision that would shape the next 300 years. They classified humans as Tier 7 Kim. Sue was a young student when she first learned what Tier 7 meant. She was studying history at a university in Busan when her professor explained the galactic ranking system. Tier 1 species were the founders of the Concord. They had the most power, the most rights, and the most respect. Tier 7 was the bottom. It meant you were barely considered alive. It meant your opinions did not matter. It meant your lives were worth less than the fuel in an alien ship. Sue felt sick when she heard this. She went home that night and cried for hours. But then, she did something that would define her entire life. She started writing. She began to document every wrong that the Concord did to humanity. Every insult, every death, every broken promise. The Treaty of Submission was signed in the year 2247. Humans were allowed to exist, but only under strict rules. They could not expand beyond certain areas of space. They could not develop weapons above a certain level. They could not trade freely with other species. Human merchants had to pay 3 times more tax than anyone else at every starport in the galaxy. When humans complained, the Concord ignored them. When humans protested, the Concord sent warships. When humans begged for mercy, the Concord laughed. The first great tragedy came in 2298. A human colony on a moon called New Geneva had grown too large for the Concord's comfort. 50,000 people lived there. They had built schools, hospitals, and farms. They had created a small but beautiful community far from Earth. The Vrel decided they wanted that moon for a military base. The evacuation order gave humans 30 days to leave, 30 days to abandon everything they had built over 50 years. The colony leaders asked for more time. They asked for help with transportation. They asked for basic decency. The Vrel response came from orbit. Plasma fire rained down on New Geneva for 6 hours. When it stopped, nothing remained but glass and ash. 47,000 people died. The youngest victim was 3 months old. The oldest was 90-2. Kim Soo added their names to her document. All 47,000 of them. It took her 2 years to finish. Park Tae was a captain by then. He commanded a small patrol ship that protected human trading vessels from pirates. When he heard about New Geneva, he locked himself in his quarters for 3 days. His crew heard him screaming. They heard things breaking. When he came out, his eyes were red, but his face was calm. He never spoke about those 3 days. But everyone who knew him said he was different after that. It's harder, colder, more patient. The Concord issued a statement about New Geneva. They called it a regrettable incident caused by human failure. To comply with lawful orders, they said they hoped humans would learn from this experience and become better members of the galactic community. Sue, read that statement 17 times. She memorized every word. She promised herself that one day she would make them take back every single lie. The years passed slowly. Humanity endured insult after insult. Their colonies were taken. Their people were killed. Their dignity was stripped away piece by piece, but they did not fight back. They could not fight back. The Concord was too strong, and humans were too weak, or so everyone believed in secret. In hidden laboratories and underground bunkers, human scientists worked on projects that no one was supposed to know about. They studied alien technology. They learned its secrets. They found its weaknesses. They told no one except each other. They passed their knowledge from generation to generation like a sacred flame. Park Tae retired from the Defense Force. In 2312, he was 65 years old and tired in ways that sleep could not fix. But before he left, he met with a group of young officers in a secure room beneath the Seoul Command Center. He told them about his years of service. He told them about every humiliation he had witnessed. And then he told them something that made their blood run cold. "The aliens think we are weak," he said. "Let them think that. Let them believe we are broken, because one day they will learn the truth. And on that day, they will understand what it means to push humanity too far." Kim Soo finished her document in 2350. It was over 10,000 pages long. It contained the names of every human who had died because of alien cruelty. It documented every broken treaty, every stolen colony, every ignored plea for justice. She titled it The Ledger. She made copies and hid them in locations across human space. She told her students to guard them with their lives, because one day, she said, this ledger will be opened. And when it is, the galaxy will finally see what they have done to us. That day was coming. Humanity just had to wait a little longer. HFY was a small world at the edge of human space. It had green fields, clean rivers, and air that smelled like flowers after rain. 12,000 people lived there. Most of them were farmers. They grew crops that fed colonies across 3 star systems. It was a peaceful place. A good place. The kind of place where children played in the streets without fear. Choi Yuna arrived on HFY in the spring of 2547. She was 24 years old. And fresh out of the military academy, her job was simple. She was supposed to manage the colony's defense grid. It was not much of a grid. Just a few old satellites and some ground-based sensors. Enough to spot incoming ships, but not enough to stop them. Yuna did not mind the quiet assignment. She liked the colonists. She liked watching the farmers work their fields. She liked the way the sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and purple. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was protecting something worth protecting. Shin Hana was a botanist who had lived on the colony for 15 years. She had come to HFY to study alien plants, but she had stayed because she fell in love with the land. She spent her days in the greenhouses developing new crops that could grow in difficult soil. Her work had helped feed millions of people across human space. Hannah had a daughter named Bora. The girl was 6 years old and had her mother's smile. She loved to help in the greenhouses, even though she was too small to reach most of the plants. Hannah would lift her up so she could water the flowers. It was their special time together. Everything changed on a morning in late summer. Yuna was in the command center when her sensors detected incoming ships. At first she thought it was a trading convoy, but then she saw the size of the vessels. Then she saw the weapon signatures. Her blood turned to ice that Keth had come. Their fleet was massive. 20 warships, each one capable of destroying the entire colony by itself. They hung in the sky like dark clouds promising a storm. The lead ship transmitted a message that every person on HFY could hear. This world now belongs to the Keth Dominion. All humans will leave within 48 hours. Anyone who remains will be considered an enemy. Una sent an emergency signal to Earth immediately. She begged for help. She begged for time. She begged for anything. The response came 6 hours later. Earth was sending a diplomat. His name was Beak Jin, and he had 30 years of experience negotiating with alien powers. He would arrive in 20 hours. The message told Una to stay calm and avoid conflict. Stay calm. Her hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold her coffee cup. 12,000 people were about to lose their homes. She was supposed to stay calm. Jin arrived on a small shuttle that looked like a toy compared to the Keth warships. He was a man in his 60s with gray hair and kind eyes. He had spent his whole life trying to find peaceful solutions to impossible problems. He had saved countless lives through patience and diplomacy. He believed that every conflict could be resolved with words. He was wrong. The Keth commander was named Torin. He was a massive creature covered in dark green scales. His eyes were yellow and cold. When Jin asked to meet with him, Torin agreed. He seemed almost amused. They met on Torin's flagship. Jin brought gifts. He brought data on the colony's agricultural research. He brought offers of trade and cooperation. He spoke for 2 hours about the value of peace and mutual respect. Torin listened without expression. When Jin finished, the alien leaned forward. "You have 48 hours, Torin said. That is more than your kind deserves." Jin tried again. He explained that evacuating 12,000 people in 48 hours was impossible. They did not have enough ships. They did not have anywhere to go. He asked for 6 months. He promised that every human would leave peacefully. He got on his knees and begged. Torin watched him beg. Then he smiled. It was the most terrifying thing Jin had ever seen. 40-8 hours, Torin repeated. Or we begin, Jin returned to the colony with nothing. He gathered the colonists and told them the truth. Some of them screamed. Some of them cried. Some of them just stood there in silence, unable to understand what was happening. Una worked through the night, trying to coordinate an evacuation. They managed to get 2,000 people onto ships. Mostly children and elderly. Mostly families with nowhere else to go. It was not nearly enough. 40-8 hours passed. The bombardment began at dawn. The first shots hit the northern fields. Una watched from the command center as fire fell from the sky. The crops that Hannah had spent 15 years developing burned in seconds. The irrigation systems exploded. The greenhouses shattered like glass. Then the shots moved toward the town. Jin was in the central square when the plasma hit. He saw a group of children running for shelter. He did not think. He just moved. He threw himself between the children and the incoming fire. He bought them 10 seconds. 10 seconds to reach the bunker. 10 seconds to live. He did not survive. The bombardment lasted for 3 hours. When it finally stopped, 8,000 people were dead. 8,000 farmers, teachers, doctors, and children. 8,000 lives ended because an alien empire wanted their land. Una survived. She was in the underground bunker when the attack came. She heard the explosions above her. She felt the ground shake. She smelled smoke and burning metal. When she finally emerged, she did not recognize the world she had sworn to protect. Hannah survived too. She had been in the deepest greenhouse when the bombardment started. The structure collapsed around her, but she managed to shield Bora with her body. They lay in the darkness for hours, waiting for rescue. When help finally came, Hannah walked out of the ruins carrying her daughter. Bora was crying. Hannah was not. Her eyes were dry and her face was empty. She looked at the destruction around her and felt something break inside her chest, not her heart, her patience. The news reached Earth within hours. It spread across every human world, every station, every ship. People watched the footage in horror. They saw the flames. They saw the bodies. They saw Jin's final act of courage, and then they saw something else. They saw each other. Millions of humans looking at the same images, feeling the same rage, thinking the same thought. Enough. The word started as a whisper. Then it became a shout. Then it became a roar that echoed across the stars. 300 years of submission. 300 years of patience. 300 years of burying their dead and being told they deserved it no more. Something had awakened in humanity. Something old and terrible and unstoppable. The galaxy had finally pushed too far. And now they would learn what happened when humans stopped being patient. The meeting took place deep beneath the surface of Luna. The facility had no official name. It did not appear on any map. As far as the Galactic Concord knew, it did not exist. That was exactly how Admiral Kong Wu wanted it. Wu was 73 years old. He had served in the human military for 50 years. He had watched friends die in pointless conflicts. He had attended funerals for soldiers who were killed not in battle, but in accidents caused by equipment the Concord refused to let humans upgrade. He had swallowed his pride 1,000 times because that was what survival required. But after Hanafor, he was done swallowing. The chamber was large and cold. Hundreds of people sat in rows of metal chairs. They were scientists, engineers, soldiers, and diplomats. They were the best minds humanity had produced over 3 centuries of oppression, and they were all here because they shared a single purpose. Wu stood at the front of the room. His face was hard, and his voice was steady. "You all know why we are here," he said. "The Keth murdered 8,000 of our people. The Concord did nothing. They will never do anything. To them, we are insects. We are not worth protecting." He paused. His eyes moved across the crowd. "I am tired of being an insect. Are you?" The response was silence. But it was not the silence of fear. It was the silence of agreement. The silence of people who had been waiting their entire lives for this moment. Wu continued. "For 300 years, we have pretended to be weak. We have built ships that look slow. We have developed weapons that seem harmless. We have let the galaxy believe we are exactly what they think we are." He smiled. It was not a kind smile. They were wrong. Dr. Yun Minji stood up from her seat in the 3rd row. She was 61 years old, small and thin, with silver hair and glasses that made her look like a grandmother. The Concord knew her as a simple agricultural engineer. They had no idea what she really was. Minji walked to the front of the room and pressed a button on her tablet. A hologram appeared in the air. It showed a device that looked like a metal sphere covered in strange symbols. "I call it the Silent Voice," she said. "It took me 40 years to build." The Concord banned research into this kind of technology 200 years ago. They thought they destroyed all the knowledge. They were wrong. She tapped another button. The hologram changed to show a Keth warship. When activated, the Silent Voice sends a pulse that disrupts every electronic system within range. Shields, weapons, engines, life support. Everything stops. The effect lasts for approximately 6 hours. Plenty of time to do whatever needs to be done. The room was absolutely quiet. People stared at the hologram with wide eyes. Choi Yuna was sitting in the back row. She had arrived on Luna 3 days ago. The burns on her arms were still healing. The nightmares had not stopped. But when she heard Minji's words, she felt something she had not felt since Hanai V. Hope. Another figure stood up. His name was Osung, and he was the greatest ship designer humanity had ever produced. He was a large man with rough hands and a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. He had spent 30 years building vessels that the Concord believed were worthless. "They thought we were building cargo ships," Sung said. "Freighters, mining vessels, medical transports." He laughed. It was not a nice laugh. They never bothered to look inside. He activated his own hologram. It showed one of his cargo ships. Then it changed. The hull opened up to reveal hidden weapons, armored plating, and engines that were far more powerful than anything the Concord allowed. 700 ships, Sung said, scattered across human space. Waiting for the order, Admiral Wu nodded slowly. He looked at the faces around him. Scientists who had worked in secret for decades, soldiers who had trained in hidden facilities, engineers who had built an entire fleet under the enemy's nose. "If we do this," he he said. There is no going back. The Concord will come for us with everything they have. We will be fighting the entire galaxy. Una stood up. Everyone turned to look at her. She was young and small and covered in scars. But her voice was strong. They already came for us, she said. On Hanafor, on New Geneva. On every world where they murdered our people and called it justice. The war has been happening for 300 years. We just stopped fighting back. She walked to the front of the room and stood beside the Admiral. I watched 8,000 people die. I watched children burn. I watched a good man sacrifice himself for 10 seconds of hope. She paused. I am not going to watch anymore. Shin Hannah was there too. She had left Bora with a friend on Earth. This was not a place for children. But it was a place where mothers decided what kind of world their children would grow up in. Hannah raised her hand. Her voice was quiet but clear. The Concord thinks we are weak because we did not fight back. They think we accepted our place at the bottom. They are wrong. We waited because we were not ready. Now we are ready. Admiral Wu looked at her. He saw the pain in her eyes. He saw the determination. Then let us vote, he said. All those in favor of Operation Awakening, raise your hand. Every hand in the room went up. Not a single person hesitated. Wu closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, they were wet. Then we begin, he said. 3 months from now, the galaxy will learn what humanity is truly capable of. They will learn that patience is not weakness. They will learn that silence is not surrender. And they will learn that when you push humans too far, they push back. The meeting ended. People returned to their hidden posts across human space. They prepared their ships. They tested their weapons. They trained for a mission that would change history. Una spent those 3 months memorizing the names of the Hanafor dead. All 8,000 of them. She would carry them with her into battle. She would make sure they were not forgotten. Minji spent those 3 months perfecting the silent voice. She ran simulation after simulation. She made sure it would work. Failure was not an option. Failure meant the end of humanity. Sung spent those 3 months checking every ship in the fleet. He personally inspected each vessel. He knew that lives depended on his work. He refused to let anyone down, and Wu spent those 3 months preparing himself for what was coming. He knew that some of his people would die. He knew that some might call him a monster for what he was about to do. He accepted this. Some things were worth any price. On the night before the operation began, he stood alone on the observation deck of the Luna facility. He looked out at the stars and thought about all the humans who had suffered under alien rule, all the dreams that had been crushed, all the lives that had been stolen. Tomorrow, he whispered, everything changes. He was right. Commander Torrens stood on the bridge of his flagship and felt satisfied. The ship was called Dominance, and it hung in orbit over the Keth homeworld like a monument to power. Through the viewport, Torren could see the gleaming cities below. His people had conquered 30 worlds. They had crushed 100 species. They were untouchable. His officers were busy reviewing reports from the latest expansion campaign. Another minor species had been relocated from their planet. Another world had been claimed. Business as usual. No one noticed the cargo ship approaching. It was a human vessel. Small, slow, and harmless. The kind of ship that carried grain and medical supplies. The kind of ship that was beneath notice. The Keth security systems barely registered it. Captain Node sat in the pilot's seat of that cargo ship. He was 47 years old. He had a wife on Earth and 2 sons who thought he was on a routine supply run. He had volunteered for this mission knowing he might never see them again. The ship was called Morning Star. It looked like a piece of junk. It was actually the most important vessel in human history. Day's hands were steady on the controls. His heart was not steady at all. It was beating so hard he thought it might break his ribs. But he kept flying. He kept getting closer to the Keth fleet. His communication officer looked at him. "Sir, we are within range." Day nodded. He took a deep breath. Then he opened a channel to every Keth ship in the system. "This is Captain No Day of the human vessel Morning Star," he said. His voice did not shake. "This is for Hannah 4. He pressed the button. The silent voice activated. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then every light on Torrens Bridge went dark. Every screen went black. Every system stopped responding. The massive engines that kept dominance in orbit fell silent. The weapons that could destroy cities powered down. The shields that could stop any attack collapsed. Torrens stood in the darkness, able to understand what was happening. "Report!" he shouted. "Someone give me a report," no one answered. Their communication systems were dead. Their sensors were dead. Everything was dead. Across the system, every Keth ship experienced the same thing. 20 warships, the pride of the Dominion, floated helplessly in the void. Their crews scrambled in the dark, trying to restart systems that refused to respond. On the Morning Star, Day watched his screens light up with confirmation signals. The silent voice had worked. The Keth fleet was blind and paralyzed. He smiled and whispered, "One down." At that same moment, across the galaxy, 700 human ships were revealing their true nature. Captain Nohane commanded a fleet of 50 vessels near the Vrel homeworld. They had been disguised as medical transports, arriving to deliver supplies to a human colony. The Vrel barely looked at them. Why would they? Humans were harmless. Ian watched the countdown on her screen. When it reached 0, she gave the order. The hulls of her ships opened up, revealing weapons that should not have existed. Weapons that could cut through Vrel shields like paper. The Vrel orbital defense grid was the most advanced in the galaxy. It had protected their homeworld for 1,000 years. It fell in 17 minutes. Hune broadcast a message that would echo through history. "You taught us that the galaxy only respects strength," she said. "We were good students." Similar scenes played out across 100 systems. Human ships appeared at every major Concord installation. Every starport, every military base, every seat of power that had dismissed humanity as worthless. The silent voice shut down their defenses. Human weapons did the rest. In less than an hour, the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy found themselves helpless. On the Concord homeworld, the gathered ambassadors of 50 species watched their screens in disbelief. Human ships filled their skies. Human soldiers stood ready to strike. The species they had treated like dirt for 3 centuries had them completely at their mercy. They waited for the bombs to fall. They waited for the revenge they knew they deserved. It did not come. Instead, every screen in the sector lit up with a single image. Admiral Kong Wu stood on the bridge of his command ship, surrounded by the people who had made this day possible. Yuna was there, her scars visible even through the video feed. Hannah was there, her eyes bright with tears she refused to shed. Mingy and Sung stood behind them, the architects of humanity's impossible victory. And behind them all, thousands of faces. Soldiers and scientists, farmers and engineers. The children of New Geneva. The survivors of Hannah 4. Every human who had ever been told they did not matter. Wu spoke slowly and clearly. His voice carried no anger. "Only certainty we could destroy you," he said. "Right now, in this moment, we have the power to end your civilizations. Your ships cannot fight. Your weapons cannot fire. Your shields cannot protect you. You are completely at our mercy." He paused. The silence stretched across light years. "But we are not you." The ambassadors looked at each other. They did not understand, Wu continued. "For 300 years, you have treated humanity as less than nothing. You have taken our worlds. You have killed our children. You have told us again and again that we do not deserve to exist. You thought we were weak because we did not fight back." His eyes hardened. "We were not weak. We were patient. And our patience has finally ended." He stepped forward. His image filled every screen. "From this day forward, humanity is no longer Tier 7. We are no longer beneath your notice. We are no longer something you can ignore or exploit or destroy without consequence. Every human life matters. Every human world is sovereign. Every human voice will be heard. His voice grew colder. And if you test us again, if you harm one more of our children, if you burn one more of our colonies, if you dismiss one more of our pleas for justice, we will not show mercy twice. We have proven what we can do. Do not make us prove it again. The transmission ended. For a long moment, no one moved. No one spoke. The galaxy had just witnessed something that should have been impossible. A Tier 7 species had brought the mightiest civilizations to their knees, and then they had shown mercy. Commander. Torin floated in the darkness of his dead ship. His officers were silent. His empire was humiliated. Everything he believed about humans had been proven wrong. He had called them insects. He had burned their colony without hesitation. He had laughed at their diplomats' pleas. Now he understood. They had let him believe they were weak. They had let him feel powerful. They had watched him commit atrocity after atrocity, adding each crime to a ledger they would one day collect. For the first time in his life, Torin felt afraid. Not of death. Death was simple. He was afraid because he finally understood what kind of enemy humanity really was. They were patient. They were smart. They were capable of terrible things, and they had chosen to let him live. That mercy was more terrifying than any weapon, because it meant they were not done. It meant they were watching. It meant that if he ever gave them a reason to return, they would come back, and next time, they might not be so kind. The galaxy was never the same after that day. Historians would give it many names. The Awakening, the Humbling, the Day of Reckoning. Different species remembered it differently. For the elder races, it was the day they learned that power was not permanent. For humanity, it was the day they finally stood up. But for Shinhana, it was simply the day her daughter could start hoping again. The reformed Galactic Council met for the first time 6 months after the Awakening. The old Concord was gone. Its leaders had resigned in disgrace. Its laws had been thrown out. A new system was being built. One that would treat every species as equals. Hannah walked into the council chamber, wearing a simple gray suit. She was humanity's first ambassador to this new galaxy. She had not wanted the job. She had wanted to go back to her greenhouses, to her plants, to the quiet life she had lost. But Bora had asked her a question that changed everything. "Mama," the girl had said, "if you do not help, who will?" So Hannah accepted the position, and she brought her daughter with her to every session. The alien ambassadors did not know what to make of the small human child who sat quietly beside her mother. Some of them were uncomfortable. Some of them were curious. But all of them looked at Bora and remembered what their arrogance had almost cost. The first session was tense. Many species were angry. They felt humiliated by humanity's victory. They wanted revenge. Hannah let them speak. She listened to their complaints. She heard their threats. And then she stood up and said something that silenced the room. "We do not want your fear," she said. "We want your respect. There is a difference. Fear makes enemies. Respect makes neighbors. We have proven we can be dangerous. Now we want to prove we can be partners." She looked around the chamber. 8,000 people died on Hanafor. They were farmers and teachers and children. They wanted nothing except to live in peace. Your Concord allowed them to be murdered because their lives were considered worthless. We will never forget what happened to them. But we are willing to build something better. The question is whether you are willing to do the same. No one answered. But no one argued either. The reforms came slowly. New laws protected minor species from exploitation. New courts allowed grievances to be heard fairly. New treaties ended the old ranking system that had treated some lives as more valuable than others. It was not perfect. Change never is. But it was better. And every year it got a little better still. Admiral Kongwu retired 1 year after the Awakening. He bought a small house on the rebuilt colony of New Geneva. The same world where 47,000 people had died 3 centuries ago. The same world that humanity had refused to forget. Now it was alive again. New buildings rose where ashes had fallen. New farms grew where plasma had burned. New children played where their ancestors had died. Wu spent his days gardening. He grew vegetables and flowers and trees. Visitors sometimes came to ask him about the war. He always gave the same answer. "I do not like what we did," he would say. "Violence should never be celebrated. But sometimes it is necessary. Sometimes you have to fight to prove that you deserve to exist. The important thing is knowing when to stop." We stopped. And that is why we are not monsters. Dr. Yun Mingi received offers from every species in the galaxy. They all wanted her technology. They all wanted to know how she had done the impossible. She refused every single offer. "Knowledge is not the problem," she told a reporter once. "Wisdom is." The silent voice could have been used to conquer. We used it to protect. That was a choice. Anyone can learn to build weapons. Learning when not to use them is much harder. When the galaxy figures that out, maybe I will share what I know. She lived quietly after that. She taught physics at a small university on Earth. Her students had no idea that their professor had changed history. Osun continued building ships, but they were different now. They were exploration vessels and science ships and transports that carried colonists to new worlds. He liked this work better. "Warships are necessary sometimes," he said. "But building things that help people grow is more satisfying than building things that help people die." Choi Yuna returned to Hanafor. She oversaw its reconstruction. She watched new farms rise from the ashes. She helped families build new homes on the land where their loved ones had died. Every year, on the anniversary of the massacre, she held a ceremony at the memorial. She read all 8,000 names. It took hours. She never skipped a single one. Aliens started coming to listen. At first it was just a few. Then it was dozens. Then hundreds. They would stand in silence as Yuna read the names. They would look at the list of the dead and remember what their civilization had allowed to happen. Some of them cried. Some of them apologized. Some of them just stood there, unable to find words. Yuna accepted them all. She did not forgive easily. But she understood that healing required both sides to try. And Bora grew up. She grew up in a galaxy that finally saw her species clearly. She attended schools where human and alien children learned side by side. She made friends with beings from dozens of worlds. She saw possibilities that her mother's generation could never have imagined. When she was 18, she enrolled in the Fleet Academy. When she was 25, she received her first command. A small exploration ship assigned to map unknown regions of space. She named it Patience. Her mother came to the launch ceremony. Hannah was older now, her hair streaked with gray, but her eyes were still bright. She hugged her daughter and whispered something that made Bora smile. "The galaxy is big," Hannah said. "Go find something wonderful." Bora did. She discovered new worlds and new species. She made first contact with civilizations that had never heard of the Galactic Council. She told them the story of humanity, the long patience, the terrible day, the choice for mercy. The new species listened with amazement. They could not believe that such a small people had humbled such mighty empires. Bora always ended the story the same way. "We did not want to rule the galaxy," she would say. "We just wanted to matter. And now we do. But more importantly now, everyone does. Every species. Every world. Every life. That is what we fought for. That is what we won. Not power. Not revenge. Just the right to be seen." Centuries passed. Humanity spread across the stars. They became teachers and explorers and builders. They helped younger species find their place in the galaxy. They remembered their own history and made sure no one else had to suffer the same way. The day humans said enough became a holiday across known space. Every species celebrated it differently. Some held parades. Some held moments of silence. Some simply told stories to their children about the patient people who had changed everything, and in the great archives of the galaxy, a single entry was updated every year. It had been written long ago by an alien historian who finally understood what humanity taught the universe. The human species presents a mystery that we continue to study. They are capable of extraordinary patience and extraordinary strength. They endured centuries of abuse without breaking. When they finally acted, they had the power to destroy us. They chose mercy instead. We have asked them why. The answer is always the same. We never wanted to be feared. We wanted to be equals. We wanted our children to grow up in a galaxy that saw them as worthy. We wanted everyone to have that chance. This is their legacy. Not the weapons they built, not the empires they humbled, but the simple truth they forced us to accept. Every life matters. Every voice deserves to be heard. Every species, no matter how small or young, has dignity. It is a lesson we should have known without them. We are grateful they taught us anyway.